Tess from Yard Food. I'm here today with another session of Grow It. I'm planting my garden and I'm taking you along the garden path so that you can glean whatever might be helpful and plant your garden right along with me. I'd have taken us up to a garden bed today, but as you can see, it's raining. And I'm not sad about that. I'm so happy that we're getting a little bit of spring moisture. It's been super dry and the garden beds have been sort of dusty. And so anytime it rains like this in the spring, it's a really good thing. And also one thing about rain, maybe you don't know, is that it tends to bring the nitrogen out of the sky, out of the air, and deposit it into the soil. So it's a little boon for us as well as moisture. But back to the broccoli, I'm going to plant some today, and I'm just going to do a quick little talk about it so that later when you get to your broccoli planting, if that's on your list, you've got a little bit of heads up and maybe some tips that'll help you get yours started as well. So I prepped a bed up there, and like I've done with every other crop that you and I have talked about, I've added some well-rotted manure or compost to that grow bed. So it's up there getting all nice and moist and will be ready for planting. I'll just go up later on and I'll follow the directions as far as how far apart to put my broccoli plants based on the information on my tag. And remember, like we talked about with our seed packets, often these little tags that come in your vegetable starts are really full of some really good information about the plant that's in your little packs. So give that a read and see if there isn't anything that's helpful. One of the questions I often get is, well, how far apart should I plant my broccoli? And here's a little trick that is going to help you with any crop that you're going to plant, help you be able to answer that question and never have to ask it again. Just imagine a full-size broccoli growing in a garden bed. Maybe it's tall, maybe it's wide, and imagine that head of broccoli. You want to make sure that you're spacing these young plants with enough room so that that full adult-sized broccoli can grow unimpeded in that bed. So, I don't know, I'm going to give these guys maybe, here's one, and here's another. So just a general idea about how big those broccoli plants are going to get later on. I just sort of wing it sometimes and just try to give things space so that as they grow up in size, they've got plenty of room to spread out, to grow their leaves, and to grow their full-size heads that they're going to produce. You may wonder, how big is a broccoli head? Well, think about the broccoli you've seen in the grocery store. There's a full-size head size, an idea for you. Sometimes there's information out there in places we forget to look. And then here's another thing I want to share with you about broccoli. There's two different kinds of broccoli. One kind of broccoli grows and makes a big head. When you harvest it, that's it. The crop is done. Another kind of broccoli does the same thing. It grows, it makes a big head, but once you harvest that head, that particular kind of broccoli will continue to send out little yummy side shoots all summer long. And so what I find is super useful in my broccoli patch is to plant two kinds of broccoli. One that gives me a big head that I can harvest, take into my kitchen and maybe process up later for freezing in the freezer for winter meals, but also that I've got a broccoli that I can then harvest its main head, but then continue to get yummy, fresh little sprigs of broccoli all summer long. So I try to look ahead, I try to think about the different kinds that are available to me, and when I can find both kinds, both the big head and the side shooting kind, I pick both, because then I'm assured to have fresh broccoli both for the freezer and winter eating, and then all summer long. So good thing to think about there. Now, like we've talked about many times before, you're going to want to fertilize that bed. And I put lots of yummy compost up in that bed. It's getting nice and moist today, and it's going to be ready for planting once the sky clears. But maybe you don't have access to compost today. Maybe that's not something that's freely available in your neighborhood. Well, if that's the case, you understand that fertilizing your soil, feeding those garden beds is critical if you're to have any success with your broccoli. So I want to suggest a product. You can find it at Yard Food. You can find it at tesshope.com. You'll find the link up above. And this is literally a starter fertilizer. What I would do if I didn't have a yummy composted bed ready and waiting, and I may still add some of this, we will see, but I will read the directions on the back, which will tell me that this is the perfect product to add a little bit of, it'll tell you how much, to that planting hole, so that when my broccoli begins to root itself and begin to grow, it's gonna find all of those nutrients that it's looking for already going on in that hole because I put it there in this starter fertilizer. So a good thing to think about is, what am I gonna feed my broccoli when I plant it, and how am I gonna care for it all the way along its lifespan? Once I've got it in the ground, once I've put some fertilizer of some sort in it, then there's some issues that are gonna come along that I want you just to have a heads up about. You and I both know that we're not the only ones in the garden looking for lunch. There's all sorts of creatures out there. There's bugs that are wiggling along in the soil that maybe we don't know are there yet. Maybe their life cycle hasn't brought them to the point where they're going to be destructive to our plants yet. But there's also little creatures that come out in the dark of night when we're not looking, called mice. And believe it or not, mice love to nibble off the tops of your broccoli plants. So I want you just to have a heads up and be prepared for that, and maybe come up with a couple solutions before you have to face the disappointment of walking out to your broccoli bed and finding all of these green tops munched away. Mice love broccoli, and so there's a couple do-it-yourself ways that you can do it. One, if you or your family drink milk, I want you to save those plastic milk jugs. They're useful in the early spring garden in a couple of ways. You can take that plastic milk jug, cut out the bottom, and then place that over your broccoli plants that you've planted, sort of wiggle them down inside of the soil so that a mouse cannot come along and get access to your broccoli. It works super well, plus it acts as a mini little greenhouse to give your broccolis a fun little warm place to get started. You can make sure that that top is off so that it breathes, so that it doesn't get so warm in there. It cooks your little broccoli, but it really does help, especially in these cool nights we're still having in April. So think about using that milk carton both as mouse protection and as a little warmer to keep your broccoli plants safe from maybe some of these still cold, freezing nights we're gonna get from the wind and from all sorts of other things. And then I use this, maybe you saw it in my garden before. I use this a lot for a lot of different purposes. This is a white polyspun material. It's called remake cloth. You might also hear it called floating row cover. And it works for a lot of reasons, for a lot of purposes, I should say. It just plain old works. Here's how I use it. I use it early in the spring to do a couple things. I'll plant my broccoli, and then right after my broccoli get planted, I will just put this right over the grow bed, and I will just sort of weigh it down with stones or boards or, you know, whatever I can find out there. And literally this will float over the row crop. The light that comes out of the sky, the light that we're looking for to grow our veggies, can get through this cloth. Pretty much 95% of the sun's rays come through this cloth, so we're not worried that it's going to shade our plants so much. It also acts as a frost protection and a warming barrier, similar to that milk carton idea, and keeps my baby plants a little bit warmer and protected from nighttime temperatures and frosts or light freezes that might be coming along. And it'll also keep the mice out if I do a good job of sealing up the edges. But do me a favor for longevity of your remake cloth, and don't puncture it. Don't stick nails or spikes or stakes through it, because once you do that and you puncture it, the product tends to want to rip. I want this to last for several seasons for you, especially how useful it's going to be. So just weigh it down with stones or boards. So I use it in the early spring for that reason. I also use it all throughout the summer to keep bugs off of my crops, to keep birds out of my strawberries, to do a lot of different things. And then I use the same cloth again later in the fall to keep those early fall frosts off of my tomatoes, let's say, or off of some of my other veggie plants that I just need a little more time to get that crop up and going and maturing before the fall frosts take it out. So this stuff called Remay or floating row cover is going to save your britches more times than you can imagine. Okay, quick, simple, to the point. I'm planting broccoli. I hope that if broccoli is on your list, this has helped you get off to a really good start. I'm so looking forward to next episode. I don't know what we'll be planting, but I'm sure whatever it is, it'll be time because that's what I'll be doing, and I'm going to take you right along with me. Don't ever forget, we care about you deeply. We are committed to your success in the garden. So keep tuning back. We'll keep pumping out the info and doing our best to arrive at the end, both of us, you and me, with a successful harvest from our garden. You take care. We'll see you next time.